This is par for the course of South African governance in the post-apartheid era. Corruption is rampant at all levels, from the politicians to the police. The police are comprised of mostly black Africans who are hostile towards whites and treat the whites unfavorably. They do not care about solving crimes committed against white people or in stopping black-on-black violence either, and are simply opportunists looking to gain riches easily. Just as any concerned citizen under attack would do, the whites will call the police when they are being broken into or stolen from, but the police are just as corrupt as the thieves. They will cover for the criminals and look the other way while whites are being targeted. Now the country has regressed to third world status in a matter of years. The situation only continues to get worse for all residing in South Africa. South Africa went from being a beautiful first world country with top-of-the-line hospitals and a very high standard of living for not only whites, but blacks as well, to a third world hellhole. Before the end of apartheid, work was plentiful for both blacks and whites. Their streets were safe. Now everything is falling apart. Due to enforced affirmative action laws where non-whites are given preferential treatment, despite their capabilities to perform the job, South Africa has experienced a rapid decline in all of its industries, military, and infrastructure, with rolling blackouts where the power will be shut off for hours at a time. This happens almost daily. This is now commonplace in black-run South Africa, posing yet another security risk to South Africans. If white South Africans have a bit of money, they can barricade themselves behind electric fences and barbed wire to protect themselves from home invasions. But during a rolling blackout, which happens very frequently, these fences are rendered useless, as are the security systems. Some of the most horrific and unimaginable horrors take place when they are vulnerable like this, especially since gun laws make it virtually impossible to obtain a firearm. Without these security measures, the whites are sitting ducks. Whites are being murdered in the most sadistic and sickening ways imaginable. They are not just killed, but are tortured for days. For example, a group of blacks will wait for the children to come home from school and will tie the children up. Once the mother arrives at home, they will tie her up as well. They will wait for the father to come home and then tie him up also. They will then begin to torture and rape the mother and children in front of the father while he is tied up, unable to help. They will pour hot oil on the children, rape them with broken bottles, disembowel them, and light them on fire. They will often leave the father alive, so he has to live with these horrific images replaying through his mind for the rest of his life. There are an estimated 50+ murders per day in South Africa. These are not crimes of opportunity. The majority of the time, the blacks will not steal one single item. The whites are not just murdered because they want their farms or property, but they are murdered simply due to a severe hatred toward the white people, and it involves torture, humiliation, and rape. The white farmers are the ones who are particularly targeted. They are more easily targeted than the other whites because most of the time they live in isolation and are far away from any neighbors that could intervene. Another reason for some of the horrors inflicted upon the innocent white children of South Africa is that the witch doctors of the African tribes will actually tell their people that in order to cure AIDS, they need to rape white babies, and the blacks actually do this. It is not just the incredible amount of murder that is leading to the genocide of whites in South Africa, but the anti-white policies mentioned already. White men were forced from their jobs first, but soon after, the white women were not able to get jobs either. With no help from the world and no jobs to make a living, many of these impoverished whites were forced into squatter camps, where they live in makeshift shacks on top of a trash heap. The squatter camps that the whites are forced to live in are some of the worst conditions you can imagine. The government has provided them with only a few steel walls to erect a small structure, although these structures have no windows, ventilation, or flooring. 300+ people have to share one outhouse and one water spigot. They are unable to grow any food for themselves due to the drought and lack of clean water. They are given no help from their government or from the UN and other humanitarian groups. Babies are born on top of a trash heap with hardly any food to eat. The squatter camps are often flooded during the rainy season, which renders their small structures useless. When people are told about the conditions that these whites are forced to live in, they tell them that they either deserve it or that they should just leave if they don't like it. These people don't even have enough money to buy a loaf of bread, let alone a plane ticket to a new country, or enough money to start a new life for themselves. There are an estimated 80 white squatter camps in the Pretoria area alone.
We are fighting for our language, we are fighting for jobs. So my feeling is that we are only fighting all the time to survive.
Across South Africa as a whole, there are an estimated 400,000 whites living in these conditions. Census figures suggest an estimated 8,000 white households live in shacks. Since the world has fallen silent on this ongoing genocide, the white South Africans have nowhere to go and are forced to rot away without food, water, safety, or shelter. Genocide Watch has declared genocide in South Africa, and the whites are currently in stage 6. There are only 8 stages. Black students are burning down their universities and attacking white students for colonizing their education. White students are attacked and harassed just for attending university. These whites are facing complete extinction, and the world has turned its back on them. There is a complete media blackout when it comes to the genocide in South Africa. Only a few brave outlets dare to cover this situation. The powers that be wish for this bloodbath to be kept in the dark so that white people around the world won't learn the truth and try to help, or even realize that what is happening in South Africa is now coming to their own doorstep. The powers that be have the exact same fate in store for every single white country. This is not just about annihilating whites from South Africa, but exterminating whites off the face of this earth for good.
Hi, everybody. That was almost unprecedented. And you lie in there, and I don't even drink. Oh well. The result of that was I had 3 competing thoughts in my mind. One was to tell you about joining AMAC. There's a banner at my website. It's the conservative answer to AARP. Another was which issue do I get to right now, and I have 3 revolving in my mind. But there is one that has nothing to do with politics that I feel that I should share with you right now. This is in the Los Angeles Times. Bad luck with random DNA errors is responsible for 2/3 of cancer mutations, study says. This is how it begins. Even in a world with pristine environment, no cigarettes, and the ability to fix faulty genes inherited from our parents, most of the cancers diagnosed today still would occur thanks to a combination of biology and bad luck. Every new case of cancer depends on a collection of specific mutations in our DNA, and a sweeping new study finds that 66% of the mutations that put us at risk for cancer are the result of unavoidable errors made by cells as they copy themselves millions of times throughout our lives. In research published yesterday in the journal Science, a geneticist and a biostatistician demonstrate that most cancer risk stems not from bad genes, environmental toxins, or poor lifestyle choices, but from simple random mutations. It's an interesting question about how people react to this. I believe it. It comports with my understanding of the world. I think I've said to you on a number of occasions, not many, but not a few, somewhere in between a few and many, that one of the most profound realizations of my second half of life has, so you figure, I don't know, after 40, after 45, 50, whatever, you can't really know what half your life is till you die. But whatever it was, I realized, and it was a sobering realization, but I live with it, the role of luck in life, good luck and bad luck. From being hit by a drunk driver to various diseases, to the good luck of having basically decent people for parents, to the good luck of having basically good kids, because there's a lot of luck in the kids you have. We have to be honest about that. I'll never forget my father. This was very touching to me. My father attended a talk that I gave, and at the end of the talk, people were standing and talking to each other. And I overheard, because I was a distance away, I overheard. My father did not know that I was standing within hearing distance. And I heard somebody come over and say, "Oh, Mr. Prager, you must have been some terrific father to raise such a wonderful son." And he looked at the man and he said, "Well, to tell you the truth, it was mostly good luck." I was very touched, actually, by it. He had no idea that I was listening. There is a lot, and that includes cancer. And I think that a lot of people, and this doesn't have much to do, it has something to do, but not a lot, with politics. It doesn't have, in other words, a lot to do with it. I think it's whether or not one accepts the realities of life or not. Because there are people who want to believe. I remember there was a whole body of thought in America that if you do get hit by a drunk driver, somehow or other you were responsible. Because people didn't want to believe that randomness like that could exist. There are religious people, of course, who don't want to believe it, and I totally respect their view that, that God is responsible for everything. I am a big believer in God, but I think God created a universe where this can play a role. All right, 1-8-PRAGER-776. Hi, everybody. You're listening to the Dennis Prager Show.
Your healthy radio addiction starts now.
Power to the people!
The Laura Ingraham Show.
Activists feel like they have Trump just where they want him, on the defensive. So now he doesn't get his border wall. The Republicans resisted Trump as much as the Democrats. That's my argument here. Joining us now is Don Rosenberg. He's a California father crusading against illegal immigration. He's the co-founder of the Trump administration's new Voice program, which helps give victims of illegal alien crime a voice. He's a lifelong liberal, but on this issue, he and Trump certainly see eye to eye because of what he went through with his own son having been killed at the hands of an illegal alien in a vehicular accident. He joins us now. Don, it is good to talk to you. Thank you for what you've done for raising awareness about just how horrific crime is in the United States. We're focusing on illegal alien crime here. We don't need any more crime. We have enough as it is, even if it's going down in some places. First, before we do anything, Don, tell us about what happened to your son. I know you've told this story so many times, but for our listeners who didn't hear it before.
Well, first, Laura, thanks for having me on today. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely.
my son was in law school in San Francisco. He was coming home that evening after class or going back to his apartment when Roberto Gallo, an illegal alien from Honduras, tried to make a last-second left-hand turn. They collided in the intersection. Gallo, trying to flee, instead of stopping, accelerated and drove literally back and forth over my son 3 times before he stopped, and 5 men had to lift the car off of his body.
So wait a second. So he was repeatedly run over because the illegal alien didn't want to witness, or what was it?
Well, no. Well, that we never know, because although he was charged with vehicular homicide hit and run, the judge at the preliminary hearing decided that he just panicked, not with any testimony from the defense, just his own experience of having been in an accident. No, when they collided, my son's helmet had come off and wedged under his tire, so he backed up. He couldn't go forward. He backed up and then went forward again. But a guy had gotten out of his car and stood in front of Gallo's car, and he stopped.
And so he died instantly, obviously.
Yes.
At this. How old was your son?
25.
Oh my God. So then fast forward from that horrific tragedy that, frankly, too many of Americans have had to experience. Fast forward to the Trump campaign and how you bonded on this issue.
Well, first, we were told that Gallo was in the country legally. And didn't find out for almost a year that he was here illegally. So my first year dealing with this issue was more one of just dealing with unlicensed drivers, regardless of their immigration status. Mm-hmm. But once I found, first in testifying and going to different hearings, you kept hearing all these excuses of why these people had to be able to drive, even though they killed people. And they started giving you all this, they contribute so much to the economy, they do this, they do that, all of which was irrelevant, based on crimes that they committed. But it got me really involved in researching the issue, and it became very clear to me that, 90% of what was said was a lie. So, I was, dealing obviously with the Obama administration and getting nowhere. And, when Trump made his announcement in June of 2015, it was like finally somebody, even though I probably disagree with him on most other, policies, but at least on this one, finally someone's willing to talk about what's going on. And about a month later, I got a phone call to meet with him. He was going to be in L.A., so myself and a couple of the other families who have suffered, we went and met with him, and here we are today. And hopefully, like you said, the Republicans are a big part of the problem. I don't expect anything out of the Democrats. Hopefully we'll, get some progress on this issue. I mean, obviously we're getting some people deported, but, we're talking about a grain of sand on the beach at this point.
So the reporting that I saw, not that this matters all that much, was that, did he have temporary legal status, Gallo?
Yeah, it ended up he had temporary protected. He came into the country illegally, but then after a hurricane in Honduras, he was given temporary protective status. He had that for 11 years, so it's not very temporary, but it's very. So
the hurricane lasted for 11 years. I mean, that's just ridiculous. Hurricane was in 1998, or the
right, and today, 2017, Honduras still has
here protected status. So, it's just ridiculous.
And they refused to deport him after he was convicted. It was
not.
my efforts, both a lot of financially and emotionally expense to myself and my family, that finally got him deported. And now, with all of these bills going in lots of different places, particularly California, they'd want to use my tax dollars to keep him here.
Oh my God! Well, I'm surprised. I'm surprised he's not already back in the country.
Well, I don't think he is. His family left with him, and I think if he had planned to come back,
good. We're keeping the family united. I'm all for it.
They would have stayed. That's right.
Yeah, be united in your home country. That's what I keep saying. Be united in your home country. How about the statistic that 1 in 8 households, 1 out of every 8 kids, in California, have at least one parent who's an illegal alien. How about that statistic?
The numbers are staggering.
I mean, I don't even recognize California when I go over there. I mean, it's like it changed a lot from the mid-'80s when I first was there. The first time I went there, really in L.A. or San Diego, any length of time was like 1984. It looked like the Beach Boys back then. It was a lot different now.
Well, not anymore, I can tell you that. Mm-hmm. And we've passed the tipping point. And I don't even know how it's possible to get back to any kind of rational legal behavior in California. I mean, these guys, the people that have taken over the Senate, the Assembly, and Jerry Brown, they're really out of their minds. And unfortunately, because of a lot of the media, the public doesn't realize it. But most people's experience with people that are here illegally is a good one. They come out, they mow their lawn, they do work.
Oh, yeah, because it's like slave labor. Yeah, it's good for people because it's like slave labor. Yeah, when they want cheap labor, yeah, that's great for them until you get your kids run over. Then it's not so good.
Right. Well, but then what happens is you've got like the L.A. Times, the San Francisco Chronicle.
They're all for it.
They don't report these things. They won't even list, even in a car, collision. They will not list whether the person had a license or not, and they won't say whether they're here illegally or not. So they actually hide it. In one case, about 2 years ago, a guy with a Hispanic surname who happened to be in the country legally and had a license killed a policeman, and they went out of their way to list the fact that he was here legally and had a license.
I mean, it's an awful story, but that's the L.A. Times in the San Francisco Chronicle are among the worst media outlets in the world. I'm sorry, in the world. They are so biased and so one-sided.
I mean, there's not even a modicum. The L.A. Times is past bias. They flat out lie. I was a publisher for 15 years, not in it was news, right? But it was a trade magazine. But the rules are the same. You follow the same thing. They flat out lie because when there's a story that needs to be told, and because the person's illegal, that's why they don't tell the story. That's not bias. That's a lie.
Yeah,
they're lying to their readers.
Right. Or it's a sin of omission. They don't cover the story at all, so it's a sin of omission.
And they did, in an editorial back in November, they wrote that coming into the country illegally was not a crime. And even though I proved to them it was, they did print a correction online, but they refused to ever print a correction in the print edition.
Well, no one's reading it anyway. But, it's just... So really, really quickly, what's the Voice office going to be doing?
Well, basically it's going to be helping people like myself not at this point, it's past me, but people who, they have a tragedy, the police lie to them, the district attorney lies to them. Sometimes they have a tremendous financial need right after this happens, and there's nobody helping them. So, this is going to be a place where you can call, you can get information, you can find out about the person who killed your loved one. Well, it doesn't even have to be killed.
The status. Yeah.
It can be it's any crime that they committed, because a lot of times people aren't even told the person's immigration status, and what has happened many times they let them out of jail and then they disappear. And nobody's giving them any information. So it's really going to be a one-source place to get this information. Look, I get 3 or 4 calls a month from people that something has happened, and I can help them a little bit, but I can't get them the information that they need, and this office will be able to do that.
That's fantastic. Well, I have to say, out of this horrific tragedy, that I'm so sorry. I mean, words don't even convey, they just can't convey to you how, infuriated and heartbroken I am for you. But I'm telling you, you are turning something so horrible into something so good, and that makes me really proud of you. That's really amazing that you did that.
Well,
really amazing.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and I know so do the literally tens of thousands of others who, since the last amnesty, have gone through the same thing.
Why are you a lifelong liberal? This is my question. You don't sound like a liberal to me. You sound like someone really grounded in reality. Sorry, but...
first of all, you have to understand that I don't believe that the Democrats today are liberals.
They're illiberal.
So I believe in the liberal philosophy, and I think that there's nobody spouting that anymore.
Right.
So maybe I'm out there by myself. But
true liberals would want to protect the little people who are hurt by illegal immigration.
Oh, absolutely.
Liberals used to be for the little guy. Now they're for the big guys. They're for the big lobbying groups, big illegal immigration groups. They're for the big teachers unions. They're for Planned Parenthood. I'm sorry, but they're for all the big stuff. The little guy gets left out of the equation.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, I don't. Right now, I don't even declare myself an independent. I declare myself a nothing politically.
No, you're something to me.
Thank you. I don't agree with the Republicans on most issues, and I don't agree with the Democrats. So.
Well, I don't know where that leaves you, but well, you can come on our show. Yeah, you can come on our show anytime. And Don, any information, we'll talk to you off air. But you know, the stuff that's not getting reported, we want LifeSet to be leading on that, on the illegal immigration issue. So
I appreciate that,
we need to help with that.
Yeah, just to let you know quickly, I did file suit against the FBI, the Bureau of Prisons, and the Office of Justice Programs to get information, which they are now finally delivering.
Yeah, I bet now.
So I've got a lot. I mean, the information that they collect is not great, but I do have a lot of good information. I'd be more than happy to share it with you.
I love it. Okay, thank you so much. Don Rosenberg, turning tragedy into triumph and really helping other people, which is what we're all supposed to be doing here. Don, thank you so much. With the Voice program, giving voice to the victims of illegal alien crime, too many of them in the United States. Don't go away. Andy McCarthy joins us. It's a great piece in National Review. Susan Rice's White House unmasking a Watergate-style scandal. Andy, let's get right to it. Sometimes, on occasion, is it ever permissible for someone who is in a political position like Susan Rice was, with her history, to request the unmasking of people she knew were Trump transition people or political people of an opposing party?
Well, it's a major political abuse of power if that's what she did. Technically, Laura, she does have the authority to request, but you know, I think where people get confused here is we often talk about the intelligence community as if it were a big undifferentiated whole. And what you actually have is about three organizations, the FBI, the NSA, and the CIA, which are the collecting organizations that are in charge of refining the raw intelligence report, raw intelligence into reports that get disseminated throughout the intelligence community. And that's important because you heard what Rice said, that sometimes it's necessary in order to understand the intelligence to unmask. The people who know the most about the investigation are the collecting agencies that are doing it. So, for example, if the FBI is investigating Russian meddling in the election, they know that issue better than anyone else who is going to be a consumer of their reports. And by the time a report gets to someone like Susan Rice, who in her capacity as a White House staffer is a consumer of intelligence reporting, not a collector or writer of reports, it's already been assessed whether the identity of the American is necessary to understand the intelligence value. The people who know that issue best, the FBI, have already made that call based on, court-ordered minimization instructions. And that's something they deal with all the time. So, someone like you who speaks to a lot of people who are consumers of intelligence, I've been asking, and I'd suggest everybody in this position ask people who consume intelligence reports, have you ever gone back to one of these agencies and asked them to unmask the identity of a U.S. person because you couldn't understand the intelligence reporting without it? And I bet you that to a person, they'll say they virtually never did that.
Andy, can she claim, if she's asked to testify before Congress, can she claim executive privilege? And if she does that mean the president was involved in her thinking?
I don't think so, Laura, because executive privilege belongs to the president, and the president is Trump. So
it doesn't extend beyond it doesn't extend beyond the actual term of office?
Well, I don't know that this has ever been litigated before. Can a president who's not in power exercise executive privilege with respect to communications that went on when he was president? It'd be an interesting question if it comes up, but it's not her privilege to assert in any event.
So, and she said it would have been a dereliction of duty not to unmask intercepts. Andy, can you stay with us over the break? Because this was way too short. Okay, so Andy's going to stay with us. Calls for him about what happened in the rush to defend Rice from the left. And now they're saying this is based in racism, and They're being mean to Susan Rice, and she was doing her duty. She's a patriotic citizen, said Ben Rhodes last night. We'll get into all that coming up.
You were responsible for leaking the fact that Mike Flynn had talked to Ambassador Kislyak and perhaps to others. Is there any truth to that?
I can't get into any specific reports. I don't know what Devin Nunes reviewed at the White House. What I can say is that there is an established process for senior national security officials to ask for the identity of U.S. persons in these reports. To get beyond that, Andrea, is to disclose classified information, and those people who are doing that are doing something very wrong.
Stop picking on Susan. She decided to go for a very soft landing with Andrea Mitchell at MSNBC. What she should have done is gone on Fox, and then people would have actually maybe taken her a little bit more seriously. When you go on with Andrea Mitchell, then she's not going to get hammered. We continue with Andy McCarthy, whose great piece on this in National Review lays out why this could be a Watergate-style scandal. Andy, your response to what she said there, she at first said she didn't want to talk, she couldn't talk about this, couldn't talk about leaking because she doesn't know what Devin Nunes saw, which I found interesting, and you heard the rest.
Yeah, particularly after denying it, about 5 minutes ago, it seemed like she had any knowledge of it at all. The best defense lawyers, Laura, always build their defense around things they're not being accused of. It's the easiest way to look like you're credible. And the fact is, nobody is accusing either her of being the actual leaker, and no one is saying that the intelligence collection was unlawful, which is the other thing that she was hammering. What they're saying is that she asked for American citizens to be unmasked outside the protocols that apply to unmasking under circumstances where she was a political official at the White House and where there was no need to do the unmasking because that had already been vetted by the intelligence agencies that collected the information. And the question is, was this like an isolated incident or two, or is it a pattern of behavior from which you could infer that there was a political spying operation going on? And I think the biggest problem for her is that this is, as I see it, a three-part enterprise. There are people at the top of it like Rice who are unmasking the identities of Americans, and specifically Americans connected to Trump. You have Obama issuing this extraordinary executive order at the 11th hour of his term, which pushes these reports with unmasked identities and a lot of raw intelligence disseminated throughout the intelligence community very broadly, geometrically increasing the chances of leaking. And then based on what Evelyn Farkas said on MSNBC a few weeks back, you have people from outside the administration like Farkas, who not only was an Obama official, but she then became a Clinton campaign advisor. And what we hear from her is that they were pushing people in the intelligence community and especially people in Congress to ask for as much disclosure as possible of what the intelligence community had while Obama was still in office, which increases yet again the level of potential leaks of classified information. And lo and behold, what have we had for the past 5 months? A lot of leaking of national security information.
There is a log, I understand, from another intel officer. There is a log that's always kept for requests for unmasking. In other words, no one in the IC would ever unmask the identity of an American citizen on a verbal request. It's always a written request. And there's, as she said, there's a protocol for doing this. If that's the case, then there is a paper trail, there has to be, on this matter, unless we think there's some grand conspiracy with the intelligence community, correct?
No, you're exactly right. And, they don't just do this because they're good guys, even though we hope they're good guys. These operations of collecting intelligence and surveillance, a lot of them happen pursuant to orders of the FISA court, which is where the minimization instructions get signed off on by a federal judge. So there's a procedure that they have to follow, and there should absolutely be a paper trail for it.
So, and back to the executive privilege issue, it can be claimed, as I thought, by anyone in the executive branch. It's claimed by the president and other members of the executive branch to resist certain subpoenas and other interventions by the legislative and judicial branches. Obviously, everyone remembers the U.S. v. Nixon case from 1974, Archibald Cox and Richard Nixon and all of that. But outstanding question about whether it can be asserted post-presidency. But you have no sense about whether she would refuse to testify, and I guess she could on Fifth Amendment grounds. But other than that, if she says she won't testify or won't even testify behind closed doors to a closed door session of the Intel committees, that also raises more questions.
Yeah, I'd be curious about what the basis of that would be, since she's now told us she didn't do anything wrong. I mean, if you're going to assert your Fifth Amendment privilege, you have to have a good faith sense that something you say could incriminate you. And now that she's told us everything's on the up and up, I don't see how that would be a basis to refuse to answer questions.
On CNN last night, there was a panel of interesting cats, including this guy Philip Mudd, who I guess he was a former Intel guy in the CIA, and he had a number of things to say, including this.
Do you think that this is a diversion from this Russia story? Because so far, we see no evidence that she's done anything improper, and it seems like an effort to tar and feather her to try to make a lie the truth, the original tweet by the president.
Compared to the question of Russian intervention in the election, who leaked information is about third tier. Mm-hmm. That happens all the time on issues related to national security. If she leaked information, she should be investigated. But we're losing track of the number one question. Yeah. Can Americans vote free and secure?
So he wants, as a former Intel guy, to change the subject as well.
Yeah, well, it sounds like he's going out of his way. He's got a political position. Phil Mudd is, sympathetic to the left and the progressives. I get that. He's entitled to think that way. But he's not saying that the thing with Rice and the potential domestic political spying is unserious. And he's not saying it's proper. What he's saying is he doesn't think it's as important as Russia. Well, that's a political position. And if he's going to express a political position, I don't know what the relevance of his experience as an Intel guy is.
It was also said last night that, and I don't think, unfortunately, we don't have the soundbite, but he said, I tweeted it out last night. He also said the standard to be a surveillance or an unmasking target is that if you're heard undermining the president's initiative. He actually said that. I wish we would get the soundbite so you could actually hear what he said, but maybe we'll have it before the end of the segment.
Yeah.
But the undermining of a president's initiative?
That sounds silly to me. I mean, the standard for whether an American should be unmasked, and it's something that's applied all the time by the agencies that collect the information, which means, by the way, that analysis has been done long before Susan Rice ever gets the report in her hot little hands. But the standard is, do you need to have the identity of the American official in order to fully exploit the intelligence value of the communication or whatever the intelligence collection is that we're talking about? It's got nothing to do with the president's initiative. I don't know what even that means. It sounds like it's a political term. There are something that are known as intelligence requirements, which are promulgated by the president and the director of national intelligence, and they are the basis for why they do various kinds of intelligence collection. So if what he was talking about referred to the intelligence requirements, that's just another way of saying you need to have the person's identity in order to understand a proper intelligence investigation and to understand what it is that you've collected. And there's certain circumstances where that would obviously be true. But what I would want to emphasize, Laura, is that analysis is done by the FBI, the CIA, and the NSA when they're putting their reports together and refining the raw intelligence. It's already been done by the time the consumers get it.
Yeah, and it's not done by political appointees in the executive branch. That's just not I mean, I've talked to a number of people, and they said they can't remember a time where someone, a political appointee, would ask for the unmasking in this type of context. It just wouldn't happen. We're talking to Andy McCarthy here on the Laura Ingraham Show. Finally, Andy, do you think we'll discover, well, the one crime we know that occurred is that classified information was leaked to the media? We know that happened. That's a crime. Do you think we'll ever learn who did that within the administration?
I think, Laura, it depends on if this is serious enough and there's a pattern of it enough that somebody says, you know, we have to actually investigate this in an aggressive way, which means throw everybody who had access into pieces of information in the grand jury and be ready to subpoena the journalists too. You know, that'd be a very explosive, controversial investigation, but it could be done.
Andy McCarthy, terrific work in your piece. We really enjoyed it. We posted it on Facebook and lauraingraham.com. Andy, I think, is one of the smartest thinkers on these issues, and he does actual reporting, which we just love. Thank you so much, Andy. When we come back, the China question, as the Chinese premier will arrive in Washington and lockdown in D.C. You should see the security around the Four Seasons Hotel. It's all blocked off everywhere. Saudi leader was here. They had the Egyptian leader, the Chinese leader. They know how to stack them up. And new word of a civil war inside the West Wing. The Democrats versus the populace. Don't go away. Thanks for listening to this podcast excerpt of The Laura Ingraham Show. If you'd like to receive podcasts of our complete shows, go to lauraingraham.com and sign up to become a member of Laura 365. Our Laura 365 members get commercial-free streams and podcasts of our shows every day we're on the air. And also, you can listen to the last 30 days of The Laura Ingraham Show. Be ahead of the curve. Join Laura 365.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Dennis Prager Show, or back to it. I remind you, incidentally, that this is a 3-hour show. If you can't get to listen to all 3 hours or would like to listen again or would like to send them to a friend, you can do it, and it is commercial-free, so it is quite easy listening because it's just consistent. By the way, I just want to say that without sponsors, there would be no program. I just want to make that clear to sponsors. My gratitude to you is very, very deep. However, Pragertopia allows people to have it without sponsors. Anytime they wanted to download, just go to pragertopia.com. You can try it out for 99 cents, which, as I always say, is really just 99 cents more than free. Though you could say that about anything. $1 million is $1 million more than free, but 99 cents is closer. A very dramatic thing happened that you may not be aware of, and that is the New York Times hired Bret Stephens. I was talking about this last hour. I want to give you the reactions to his first column. Bret Stephens, the distinguished columnist of the Wall Street Journal, who was a never-Trumper, but who would, in other ways, was a consistent conservative, and I know well and I'm very friendly with, and totally differ on Trump with, but that is life. In any event, the New York Times, I think, aware of the fact that there was true, that all they really have are two non-leftists and the rest angry leftists. I mean, if there is an angrier columnist than Charles Blow, I don't know who he is. Charles Blow is the angriest human being writing a column for the mainstream media of whom I am aware. It's almost funny. It enters the realm of the bizarre to read his columns. Paul Krugman is second in anger, and that's what they are. They're angry left-wing writers generally at the opinion page. So they hired Bret Stephens, which was not expected, because Bret Stephens really is, outside of his views of Donald Trump, a conservative. So he wrote his first column saying that if people want to be taken seriously on climate change, they should stop the apocalyptic rhetoric about the world coming to an end. It was very genteelly written. But remember, any diversion from left-wing dogma is heresy. and it may not be expressed, especially in the church of the left, the New York Times. So listen to what the New York Post reports on some of the reactions. And then we have another one who has a whole list of what people have said here. Let's see. Okay, yeah, great. I have it. Here is, are you ready? Here we go. Here are some of the responses. The Rolling Stone, Jesse Burney. Now remember, this is not just folks who are vile in their comments or their tweets. This is the official left-wing media. Rolling Stone magazine's Jesse Burney. Ready? This was his tweet. Literally, go F, and of course they use the term. Go F yourself, New York Times. Go eat dog. D*CKS. All right? That's it. I mean, that's quite something, isn't it? That's the official reaction from someone representing the Rolling Stone. Next, Gizmodo. Lizzie Watson at Gizmodo. I have some news for you. You are an SH head. A crybaby. Lil effin' weenie. A massive TW*T2. Okay. This is by the way, they're no more vulgar than the head of the DNC now, who curses in front of children at public events. Remember, if you don't, you have to understand the left doesn't like Western civilization, doesn't like bourgeois civilization with all its rules of self-control. It loathes it. Emily Singer in Mike. That's MIC. When a doctor tells me that 99% of scientists say this drug will cure me, I say, well, if you're not 101% sure, then I'm not trusting you. This is the 99. This is now up to 99% of scientists. Get that? That whole 97% is a fraud. We have a whole video on that at PragerU. New Republic, Emily Atkin. What is this moist, steamy pile of sloppy horse? And you know the rest of that word. That's the New Republic reaction. This is because he didn't deny that there's global warming. He just said it may not be as apocalyptic as people are saying. That's you can't say that. We're not done. And Vox, one of the biggest left-wing sites, David Roberts. Well, this is considerably worse than I had dared imagine. Dim-witted, ridden with caricature and basic misunderstandings, and relentlessly smug. Well, at least he didn't curse. Elizabeth Lopato at The Verge. I, for one, cannot wait for the absolute SH show of a public editor to weigh in on the SH show of this piece. David Korn at Mother Jones. Democracy dies in the darkness. So too the climate. Thanks, Times, for spreading fake opinion. They live in a make-believe world. I knew this when I was at Columbia, and it hasn't changed. That's what shaped my understanding of the left. Columbia University, for which I am eternally grateful. It's when I realized they live in a make-believe world. When professors taught me that men and women were basically the same, I understood they didn't care about truth. They cared about ideology. When they taught me that America and the Soviet Union were equally responsible for the Cold War, that's the same thing. That's what I understood. I was being taught drivel at graduate school at Columbia. I have to thank Columbia. Not only did it open my eyes to the left, eyes that have been open ever since, but it also brought me to a firm belief in God. I wrote about that. You should take a look. It's on the internet. Many years ago, I wrote this column, How I Found God at Columbia. I'm not going to review it now. I'm tempted to, but I won't. Because you could read it, and I can save time on the show. So, yeah, Columbia had the opposite effect of what it wanted. I left a God-believing anti-leftist. I have come to a lot of beliefs through the back door. And religion, my affirmation of religiosity is one of them. I realize what happens when you don't have it. It's like I realized what happens when you don't have God, that all morality is relative. So you really can't say murder is wrong. You can say, I think murder is wrong, but not murder is wrong. Well, that's the reaction of Bret Stephens. It's going to be very interesting to watch him because, generally speaking, if you work at the Times and you stay in Manhattan or Washington, but especially Manhattan, gradually over time, you don't want to be a loner. The human species needs companionship. And will my friend Bret Stephens mellow as a conservative over the course of time at the New York Times? I don't know. I only know that it is a test. I would even say a God-given test, but a test, nevertheless, God or no God. I wish him well, needless to say, to have these ideas. Oh, I didn't tell you this one. At Vice, another website, Eva Pizer, I'm going to lose my mind. Well, the ideas people like Bret Stephens espouse are violently hateful and should not be given a platform at the New York Times. Violently hateful. He said, look, we can't overstate the case with global warming. That's violently hateful. 1-8-PRAGER-776. You are listening to the Dennis Prager Show. Go to Holly in Boulder, Colorado. Hi, Holly.
Hello, Dennis. Such a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you.
I am a recovering leftist, thanks to you. I'm calling to...
Well, wait a minute. Wait. I want to bask in the glory of...
I could have been listening to you, Dennis, 15 years ago because my mother told me to, and I didn't listen to my mother. So, Mom, thanks. And I'm looking forward to your Colorado visit this month. Dennis, I'm a recovering national news reporter. I spent about 15 years on the national scene at very top levels. I covered the 2008 election up close, and a lot of times I hear from my leftist friends here in the People's Republic of Boulder that it's a scree to say that the media are all on the left. Dennis, it's not.
Wait, forgive me. Don't forget what you wanted to say.
Sure.
What do they say to back it up? What media are not on the left?
NPR, the New York Times. They see it as normal, the way you write about in your book. They are from a very young age indoctrinated into all of this, into thinking that leftist views are normal views. Therefore, they believe that what they hear and read and see is not biased in any way. And especially when, and forgive me, I know a lot of really good people at NPR, but when they do their fund drives and they say, we're the smart station, we're the station for intelligent people, they're playing to people's vanity, and that's very powerful.
Hey, maybe I should try that.
You do. No, you do it just by being as smart as you are. Basically, just wanted to tell you that it is, and this is from the perspective of covering the 2008 election. I did not last one. From the perspective of covering that last election, basically you have two things that happen. You have a top-down, lockstep, concerted directive to reporters, editors, and assignment editors and producers saying, these are the stories we're going to cover. these are the candidates we're going to cover today. Don't put anyone else on air. And these are the angles that you're going to cover. I was in radio when I did this. And so it's very difficult, even if you are one of the few reporters who thinks clearly, which at the time I was not, it's very difficult to actually break through that directive and get anything else on air. And that, after years of doing that, if you're not already on the left, will indoctrinate you to being on the left, because that's the only thing that you get. Secondly, you've got this homogenized politics of the reporters and the producers themselves that come from their education. I, like you, went to Columbia. Unlike you, I was indoctrinated and I lost God there. But what happens is that basically everyone, all of your colleagues, all believe things on the left, and they don't even see it as left. Again, they see it as normal. And then they believe that it is their obligation to school the rubes, right, who don't see their perspective, who haven't seen the left as light, and really push the climate change stuff, as you were referring to earlier. And it infuriates them when others buck the system, or when others, such as Mr. Trump, beat them at their own game. And so I had many of my friends from Columbia are now at the highest echelons of media. They either are running networks or they're major reporters or producers at many of the shows and papers that you look at. When you have private conversations with them, some of them will admit, okay, fine, we kind of took on a spear and we went after Trump and we went after the people on the right because we felt it was our obligation to save the country. Most of them won't admit this. And in fact, most of them, as you saw at the Correspondents' Dinner, will double down. And that's not going to let up. You are absolutely correct. There is a civil war, and the people with the microphones, by and large, other than yourself.
What do you do now?
What do I do now? I freelance. I work on from a little mountaintop near Boulder. I still write for some of the major organizations, but I pick and choose my subjects very, very carefully. But I don't do daily news anymore, and I refuse to do politics anymore because it is so infected with money, with this.
Why do you live in Boulder?
I fell in love with a man here.
Is he a liberal?
No. He and I are kind of an
You met a conservative man in Boulder?
I met a conservative ballet dancer in Colorado.
Wait, who is?
My husband.
He's a ballet dancer?
He was.
Did he allow his views to be expressed among his fellow artists?
He has to some degree, but, again, you're talking about a section of American society where there's a lot of blowback. And it's very difficult here or in the arts or in reporting, really anywhere where people need acceptance in order to get ahead, to be as honest as possible. My husband is a man of integrity. He's a lifelong Christian, a very Christ-like Christian. He's very honest about his views without coming down on people, but unfortunately...
it's actually good for me to hear you two exist.
Well, there's a third one and a fourth one on the way, and the 3-year-old listens to you every day. And
do me a favor, send me an email, okay?
I will, and I'll see you in a few weeks. You'll be here in Castle Rock, so I'll introduce myself.
Yes, good, excellent. I would like that very much. Yeah, I will be. I'll be in Colorado Springs in a couple of weeks. That should be on Where's Dennis? We'll be back. I'm Dennis Prager.